Let's talk about Jay Woodcroft and the fact that he is out of a job, let go over the weekend. I mean, we all kind of saw this coming after the San Jose loss. Some people were looking at the video of him and Dave Manson leaving the bench and were interpreting it as him looking at Dave saying, "Oh, well, that's probably it after that loss." But
that's not what he said at all. Like, the people are really bad at lip reading.
I don't think that's what he said, but he still gets one more game. He coaches against the Seattle Kraken. They win that game, and some people even think that, hey, maybe that's the turning point. Maybe that's what changes the fortunes around for this team. But he's still gone as head coach as we enter Monday. Kris Knoblauch, who coached in Hartford and once upon a time coached Connor McDavid in the Ontario Hockey League, is his replacement. What did you think of the firing? What did you think of this news?
I mean, it felt inevitable. It also felt kind of silly. Like, this is the winningest coach that Edmonton's ever had. Granted, small sample size, but all he's done is win there. You know, he's done a good job. He is generally well respected. And it's, you know, if this losing streak happens in January of a season and they're already in decent standing, does anybody freak out if they have like a rough couple of weeks in January? It's just because it's at the start of the season. This is what hockey does, though, right? You can't fire all the players, so you fire the coach. I don't think most of this is on Jay Woodcroft. I mean, you have Connor McDavid under a point a game, probably returned too fast from an injury. He's gone 3 straight games without a point. Like, he's clearly not all the way back yet. There's injuries. There's just horrifically bad goaltending, which is not Jay Woodcroft's fault.
No.
Look, the Oilers are probably going to be fine. They probably would have bounced back even with Jay Woodcroft, but this is what you do in hockey. Coaches are disposable. Unless you're like one of those handful of guys like a Barry Trotz who can single-handedly transform a team overnight like he did to the Islanders years ago when they went from the worst defensive team in the league to the best in the span of one season. Most of these guys, I think GMs at the very least, see him as a dime a dozen. They're just kind of like, let's get a new voice in there, whatever. It's such an improvised sport. The players are just going to go do it themselves anyway. I don't know if that's true or not, but I feel that's the way coaches are viewed in the NHL, aside from a handful of special ones.
Well, I'm glad that the Edmonton Oilers decided to consult players on this before they made the coaching change.
Or did they?
Or did they? Can we pull up the clip from the press conference this past weekend where Ken Holland, the GM, is talking about it, and CEO of Hockey Operations Jeff Jackson also discussed this? I want to know if you pick up on the same vibe that I got from this.
The players' leadership group come into the conversation where they brought in to discuss potential options for this team moving forward. Is that something that you guys bring into consideration or have done before?
I'll let you know, because I have talked over this past week with some of the veterans on our team. I'm not going to tell you what they said. I take the information. Ultimately, I have to make decisions. Obviously, Jeff's got a long relationship with Connor. You can probably talk about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we didn't consult with the players on this decision. Never spoke with Connor or Leon or Nuge or Nursey or any of the other leadership group. These guys are here to play hockey. That they know that's what they want to do. They don't like being involved in these types of decisions. That's my experience. So the fact that, you know, Kris was Connor's coach in Erie in 2014, 15, it only has something to do with this because I think Kris Knoblauch's a very good coach. Connor didn't have anything to do with this decision, and neither did the other leadership group.
Mark, can I also read out a tweet after this? So Connor McDavid got to speak on this today, and I know I'm only reading one tweet. This is only part of what's been said out there today, but he was asked if he was given a heads up about the coaching change. Here's this quote. I'm reading from Daniel Nugent Bowman's Twitter, by the way. I woke up to a text like probably you guys did as well. I know the narrative out there, but it couldn't be further from the truth. That doesn't sound all that uniform to me. This sounds kind of a weird kind of mess. Am I wrong in thinking that?
I mean, you asked what my view of that, my read of that is. My read of that is Ken Holland is not in charge of this team. Jeff Jackson is. Like, clearly, Holland's in the last year of his contract. He's on the way out. Like, it's pretty clear that this is Jeff Jackson's team, and he's going to be taking over all the personnel decisions now. And so, I don't think Ken Holland was lying that he spoke to players on the team, but I think the players probably know who's in charge too. So they didn't feel like they were having input. They thought they were just talking to, just shooting the shit, basically. So that's the vibe I get, is that Ken Holland is just kind of taking up space there.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to see how it is with him. But just to me, at least from an outsider's perspective, this just looks kind of weird. But also the fact that Kris Knoblauch, who has a history with Connor McDavid, and Connor McDavid seemingly blindsided by all of this feels like the exact opposite of like those teams LeBron has been on, where he gets to pick who he wants as coach, or he gets to pick these players, right? Like
that's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Do you think that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl should have a say in this? Because I went through this just last 2 years ago with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves, whether they should have input on whether Derek King should stay, whether they should go hire an outside. Are they going to have any kind of say on the direction of the franchise following the firing of Jeremy Colleton and all the misery they went through off the ice and everything? And Kane kind of said, yeah, I'd like a say in that. And, Stan Bowman was always adamant, no, that's not how this works. And Kyle Davidson kind of hemmed and hawed and didn't really give a straight answer on that. But that's the way it's done now in basketball. Do you want to see that in hockey? Do you want to see players taking more, a more assertive approach to team building, or should they shut up and dribble?
I mean, Edmonton has arguably the best player we have ever seen.
Yeah.
And Leon Draisaitl is a top 3 player. And he might not be 3. He might not. I mean, he's not 1. He might be 2, depending on how you stack it up there. And while I understand that teams are not made by just 2 players, those 2 are integral parts to that team. So why shouldn't they have some kind of say as to how the team should be run? I can understand you don't want them to be in a position where we're calling McDavid McGM or Le GM for Leon. I can like the GM and the president of hockey operations, the people in the front office, they still have jobs to do. They still have to do what's right for a team. But you're making all that money, you have all that power in the NHL, and you can't have a say in your own front office. I don't even think it, like, to say it's just, it should just be like basketball. Like, that should just be a thing that high level athletes who have some kind of sway and influence on a team should have. Like, if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I think Connor McDavid should have every right to know. Look, it's one thing for Connor Brown or Zach Hyman or Darnell Nurse to be blindsided by this news. For Connor McDavid to be blindsided about this news, especially for a guy who he knows, that to me, I'm a bit surprised about. Like, he should have some kind of say. And and also too, it seems as if, like, he went to the defense of Jay Woodcroft as well, saying he didn't lose the room. Like, maybe if they consulted him on this, maybe Jay Woodcroft still has a job. I don't know how you don't consult these players on this.
Well, I'm with you there. I think that, especially with, McDavid's got 2 years left on his contract. Draisaitl's in the last year of his contract. You want these guys to
He'll enter the last year of his contract next summer.
Right. Sorry. Yeah. So you want these guys to be happy. You want them. So look, you don't go to them and say, hey, should I fire the coach? Who do you want to be the coach? But you seek their input. You go up to them and you say, what's the vibe right now in that room? Be honest with me. What's the read on Woodcroft now? Is he the guy? Are there concerns? You get their input and it helps you inform a decision. That's how it's supposed to work. Those guys have earned the right to have a say in this. Also, they hold the fate of your franchise in their hands, whether they want to stay long-term or not. So you want them to at least feel like they're respected and appreciated and involved. To blindside Connor McDavid, if he really was blindsided, and why would he lie about that? That's not a good way to start. That's not a good step in the process to take in the relationship between team and player. And frankly, Connor McDavid is a hell of a lot more important than Jeff Jackson is or Ken Holland is. 1,000 guys can do their job. Nobody can do Connor McDavid's job. So you have to at least solicit his input, even if you don't want to give him, obviously, the GM job. You got to get his input. You got to get a feel for what's going on in that room, because as a GM, you don't know it. You're not in there every day. Only the players can tell you that. And McDavid's reached a point in his career where he could probably be honest and speak his truth, and he should be heard.
I think it's cap that Jeff Jackson says that players don't like being in those types of decisions.
They desperately want to be in those decisions.
Like, come on. Doesn't it also make this worse that, this isn't just some random, not that front office people are just random, but Jeff Jackson and Connor McDavid have a history together. That was his agent. Doesn't this make this worse that he's the one who's ultimately making that decision, or at least part of that decision, and blindsides his own former client? Doesn't that make this worse?
It doesn't help, but I think that, I always think about this was a few years earlier when the Blackhawks first tried to do a rebuild. They kind of they let Corey Crawford walk. Jonathan Toews was furious about it. And I asked Patrick Kane, he said, I'd like to be involved in these discussions. The guy had been here for 13, 14 years. He's the biggest star in the history of the franchise. He wanted to have a say in the direction of the team, at least be heard, express his concerns and his thoughts and be heard. And Stan Bowman, he basically said, shut up and dribble to him. He said, players play, managers manage. And that's a very archaic way of thinking. That's some like 1960s shit. Like, that's not how it works anymore. When these guys are making 8 figures, they are more important than you are. They are more valuable than you are. They sell tickets, not you. They understand the room. You don't. You have to solicit. You are just derelict in your duty if you are not regularly speaking to your leadership group about the vibe in the room, the sense of what things are going on. Just because you'll never know it otherwise. The only ones who can tell you that are the ones in the room. And the leadership group are supposed to be the conduit between the players and management. They're the ones that can say, these are the concerns the other players have. I can say it because, I'm entrenched here. But this rookie guy can't say it because, he's still on an entry-level contract trying to keep his career going. That's what they're supposed to do. Your leadership group, lead. And that involves speaking to management.
Well said. One other thing before we move on here. Kris Knoblauch, I've mentioned before, has the history with Connor McDavid, coaching him in Erie of the OHL. Question for you, Mark Lazerus. Trivia question for you, actually.
Uh-oh.
In the 3 years Connor McDavid was under Kris Knoblauch, how many times did Connor McDavid lead the team in scoring?
Ooh, there were some good players on that team. That was Dylan Strome and Alex DeBrincat were on that line. And some other guys came through there. Because you're asking me, it's obviously not 3. I'm just going to try to quiz the quizzer here, and I'm going to say 1.
So you think that of all 3 years he was there, 2012 through to 2015, Connor McDavid was the leading scorer on the Erie Otters 1 time?
I feel you wouldn't have asked me if it was 2 or 3.
I guess that's fair. The answer is 0.
Oh, there you go. All right.
But to your
I didn't
point,
go too hard.
To your point, the year 1 he was there, 66 points in 63 games. Connor Brown outscored him by 3 points.
Well, that was he was like 14, right? He was exceptional status and all that.
Yeah. Year 2, Dane Fox and Connor Brown, again, outscoring Connor McDavid. And you mentioned Dylan Strome. Yes, he had more points than Connor McDavid that year. Alex DeBrincat, not that far off on that.
So
year.
Does Connor McDavid suck? Is that what you're telling me?
Whoa.
Headline. Get the ticker going on the bottom of the screen on YouTube. Julian McKenzie. Connor Bedard.
No.
McDavid sucks.
Don't do
too many
that.
Connors. There's too many Connors. I can't keep track of all these Connors.
There's too many of them, and you cover one of them.
There it is.
Before we, oh my God, no, I'm never going to beat the allegations now. But also, people in Calgary may love me even more.
I'm going to screenshot this.
Oh my God. There's going to be mixed opinion on this. Let me change the narrative. You see, actually, to quote Connor McDavid out there, I know the narrative out there, but it couldn't be further from the truth when it comes to McDavid sucks.
So tell me, Julian, was this start Jay Woodcroft's fault, or was it the goalie's fault? Is it PDO?
It's the goalie's fault.
Of course it's the goalie's fault. And you fired the goalie, so you did what you could do. You fired the goalie.
Mark, this team could put Lisa Simpson in net, and they still would have sucked.
No,
I tried to do like
she was really good.
She was really
Eye of the tiger, mouth of a teamster. To think all the time we wasted on Jack Campbell.
Oh, no.